In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can build this Lego Ford Model T. This video is going to be split up into chapters so you can easily find a specific section. And after dividing the Model T into its various sub-assemblies, we can get started. While we're building the car, we're going to explore the various features that come with this
MOC, or my own creation.
And we're going to start building it with the engine. The engine is the whole reason why this car was even built. Because a viewer pointed out in a previous video that this kind of engine I invented would be great in a Model T MOC. But what makes this engine so special, you ask? Well, I'll show you. Not only does this engine have the traditional crankshaft and pistons of a regular Lego engine, it also has a camshaft and flathead valves. The camshaft is geared to spin exactly half as fast as the crankshaft. You see the piston spinning, and you see the valves moving? Now, let's build it. With the engine finished, we can move along to the next part along the drivetrain, the driveline. Quite possibly the most complex part of the entire drivetrain. This plastic rod with the universal joint at one end connects the engine to the rear axle. Another joint is located on the axle itself. With the driveline done, we can move on to the next part of the drivetrain, the rear axle. The rear axle, as mentioned previously, has the other universal joint leading to the rear wheels, a heavy-duty new style differential, a 3-peg wheel hub, and a single leaf spring suspension. The axle itself is of a solid axle design connected to the body by these 4 links. The next component we are going to be building is the front axle. Like the rear axle, the front axle is of a solid axle design with a single leaf spring. The front axle is equally as important as the rear axle because it does all the steering. It also holds the 2 front wheels with this 3-peg hub, just like the rear axles. The axle is held to the body by the leaf spring and by 2 links. With the drivetrain out of the way, we can move on to arguably the most important part of any vehicle, the frame. Because with no frame, there's no car, because everything can't be attached together. This frame specifically is for a body-on-frame vehicle, meaning the frame is separate from the body. We have two functions. We have this lever for the single brake. You can see when the lever gets pushed, this bar gets pushed, which presses against the tire. Also here, we have our little shifter. You pull this back, and it goes into neutral. You push it forward, and it goes into second gear. Up here, there would be more frame, but that's part of a different sub-assembly, the frame head. The next part we are going to build is the frame head and radiator. This item serves a quadruple purpose. Its first purpose is it's the front frame head for the frame. Its second purpose, it's the radiator, which would keep the engine cool. The third feature is steering. And lastly, the fourth feature, this is the only thing that holds the axle to the body, except for the two links. For the next item on the list, we're going to be moving on to the interior, since the interior is mostly smaller items. The first item is the seats. This particular model only comes with one bench seat, enough to seat 2, maybe 3 people. Mounts to the car with 2 pins, but one of the pins already been put in the car. Next item is the fuel tank. You might be asking, why is this an interior item? Well, in Model Ts like this 2-door model I've made, the fuel tank sits directly behind the bench seat. Not very safe, but really they didn't know much about safety in cars at the time. This fuel tank is essentially just a bunch of wheels slapped onto an axle with a bracket. the steering wheel and the steering column. Unfortunately, because of the sharp angle the steering wheel sits at, it doesn't work. But it's there, and that's all that matters. The interior so quickly finished, we can move on to the last section of this build, the body. And the first component of this body we're going to build is the front hood. This entire piece isn't technically a hood. The hoods, plural, are these little guys. I just don't know what the rest of it would be called. This component houses the engine. Up here, it attaches to the front frame head, radiator, steering block thing, whatever you want to call it. Back here, it attaches to the main body. Both shrouds can be removed from the sides to reveal the fully functioning plastic engine. Item, we're going to move on to the opposite side of the vehicle with the trunk. The trunk, pretty self-explanatory, holds all your cargo and your luggage and stuff. This one specifically holds one taillight and the exhaust tip. the next part of the build. We're going to cover the trunk with a trunk lid. Very self-explanatory. Just covers the trunk so that it keeps everything away from the elements and stuff. This red bar is where it attaches to the main body. The reason part of the main body is here is because with the way this hinge is designed, it's super hard to get on this piece. But it's possible. Before we get to the main body, we're going to do the doors. The doors are what keep the passengers inside the car away from the elements and stops them from falling out. These doors are special because they have a fully functioning lock and handle. Pull out the red pin, turn the handle down, and you can turn it out. At long last, we can move on to the main body, or the cab. This is the biggest part of the body, and it has the roof, all the windows, and walls around the passenger. With the cab finished, we now need some way to attach the cab to the frame. The cab already has 2 mounts on it along the back of the body. One here and one on the opposite side. But we need 2 more mounts to mount the front. We have these 2 little things. These are probably the most complicated part of the entire build. I could hardly design them, and even you may not be able to build them, so we'll see, I guess. These black pegs attach to the frame, and these blue pegs stick out and attach to this hole right here. Again, very complicated. I only have 4 parts of the build left. The first of those 4 parts is the front bumper. This item, as the name would suggest, sits on the front of the car, protecting the rest of the vehicle from any damage from a low-speed impact. It mounts to the body using these 2 blue pegs. This mount is up awkwardly instead of the same as this one because the steering rod goes directly underneath of it. And when the front suspension articulates, that steering rod goes up. And if this mount was here, it would get in the way of the steering rod. That's an issue. And with the front bumper, of course, there has to be a back bumper, or a rear bumper. This bumper mounts underneath the rear of the body with these 3 pins. The rear bumpers have a very similar design to the front bumper to keep everything looking good. Once again, the mounts are different because of functions on the vehicle. The function here is the shifter on the frame. And now, for the final piece of the puzzle, we come to the fenders and the running boards. The fenders and the running boards are all one piece. They're mostly the same, except the front part, because the front part spreads outwards slightly. They both attach to the body all the same though. One pin on the front, this little guy down somewhere, and then a pin back here to the back of the body. finally put the car together. And I will show you through video instead of photos. Take the frame and set it down somewhere. Take the engine and begin to install it. Make sure the output shaft goes into that hole right there. Now take this engine mount and attach it to the frame. Just like that. Next, grab the frame head radiator assembly. Attach it to the frame and the engine, making sure all 4 pins go in correctly. Take the rear axle, take this plate and put it on top. Flip the car on its side and attach the 4 links to the pegs on the frame. The pegs should be on L-shaped pieces. Take the drive shaft and attach it to the output shaft of the transmission and the input shaft of the rear axle. Realize you've made a mistake. Remove the brown brick, remove the yellow plate. Reinstall the tan brick. Take the front axle and begin installing it. Remove this white piece right here so that you can install the axle correctly. Take the hole that's on the axle and insert it on the frame head. Attach the steering link to the front axle and make sure the links are attached to the frame. There's only 2. Take the rear seat and attach it to the blue pegs on the frame. Take the fuel tank and turn it around and attach it to the frame right behind their seat. Take the trunk and attach it to the body using those 2 black pegs. Take the front body panel and begin attaching it. Make sure the steering shaft is in the eyelet, as I'm failing to do, and attach the 2 blue pegs to the radiator. Take the cab and slide it over everything else. But before you start installing the cab, take the trunk lid and attach it to the cab. Believe me, this makes installation of the trunk lid so much easier, it's not even funny. Flip down these 2 flaps so that the back of the body is mounted to the frame. Take a front mount, making sure that notch is facing the top. Attach it, and then press the blue peg. Go to the other side and do the same thing. Again, grabbing a mount, making sure the tab is facing up, and attach it to the frame. Move around to the side of the car, take the steering wheel, and install it underneath the dashboard, making sure it installs in that gray plate by the hood. Take a red bushing and attach it over the peg. This is 1 pedal. Move around to the other side of the body and install a 2nd pedal. The 3rd pedal is already installed. Take a door, unlock it, and attach the hinge to the cab. Close the door, lock it, and move around to the other side to do the exact same thing. Take an L piece and attach it underneath the body. Take another L piece and attach it the exact same space on the other side. Move around to the other side of the body. Take a fender, making sure to push the yellow pin, attach it with this gray pin, push in the axle, and attach the other pegs, the one at the front and the one at the rear. Repeat this on the other side, although there's no gray peg to attach it to underneath the body. Move underneath the body, where you see that peg sticking out, take a red bushing and attach it there, so that the fender doesn't fall off. Take the bumper, make sure the eyelet is closer to the bushing side, and then attach the other 2 mounts. Take the front bumper. Wait a minute, that's not the front bumper. Take the front bumper and attach it by the headlights, making sure that it's aligned properly. Take 4 of these wheels and tires and violently throw them at the car until they attach themselves. There we go, it actually worked. Take one of these and attach it to the steering shaft on top of the radiator. Take one of these pieces and attach it to this blue peg. Take a red pin and put it in the gray piece. Take a half bushing and attach it on the back. Take a bevel gear and attach it to the front. This is a mirror. Now, repeat the same thing on the other side. And at long last, the Ford Model T is finished. But what's next, I hear you ask? This MOC has so much potential for other things. Well, I've thought of that. Which is why, next time you see this car, I will be showing you how you can turn it into a hot rod. For that, I've built and bought several things, including this custom supercharged V8 and these gymongous tires. So yeah, with this in mind, you can really expect some stuff for this car because it's going to be great. If you've managed to make it this far, I would like to thank you for watching this video until the very end, regardless of whether or not you've decided to build this. I ask you this: if you enjoyed this video, I would like you to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another video.